on the call, I've never been so embarrassed in my life. He asked me, what's your core competency? I had no idea what to say. I'm like, you're asking me things like, I can't, my brain is now not functioning because I'm so nervous. And I just started laughing when I was done. I'm like, that was like, wow, like that was a major failure. I obviously lost that gig. I've never been so embarrassed in a business meeting, but I walked away from that realizing, all right, well, like I've got to structure my process now. And I've got to be able to go into these calls when something like this happens and say like, this is what we can do for you. This is what we do really well. This is how we can optimize your system. And it taught me to have these, not just for those business meetings, but to actually identify my own business. Like, what is my core competency? What do we do well for businesses?
Can you share with us what's been challenging, from 2012 until today? What's been something that's been challenging in your business that you've struggled with and had to overcome?
Yeah. So 2012 was probably the next big challenge, the big hurdle I had to come off. And that was honestly quitting my job, a job that's done much for me, as we established, and then going into my business. It's the scariest moment of your life is to say, I'm going to turn away this guaranteed salary and I'm going to go work for myself. You don't know where the money's going to come from. You don't know if the business is going to uptick. You don't know if you're going to make it at all. I was fortunate, if you want to look at it that way, that I had no kids, I had no mortgage, I had no wife, nobody depended on me. So it took me every single day for 6 straight months for me to muster up the courage. I went into work every day, 3 days a week for 6 months. And I'd say, today is the day I'm resigning. Today is the day I'm resigning. And I couldn't muster up the courage to do it. Finally, my boss at the time, who again became a great mentor to me, calls an office meeting. And this is the day, I swear that this was the day I had it. I was ready. I went into his office. I'm like, I need to talk to you. He's like, hold on. I got to do an office meeting. Let's just talk after it. He says he's retiring. And I go in his office afterwards because he says, oh, you wanted to talk to me? Like, well, you just like stole my thunder. I was going to tell you I'm resigning today. That threw a curveball because the person that was succeeding him was anticipating that I would stay with the company and increase my role there. So that was really, really difficult for me to overcome. And I know, as business owners, that's the scariest thing. I talked to everybody I knew, and I would encourage you to do the same if you're kind of teetering. What should you do? And a lot of the advice I had, it was twofold. One of which was, find a singular focus and define what that is. Don't try to be everything of everybody. But when you finally leave your job, you don't realize how much extra time you're doing it. When it's a side hustle, you're putting in half your energy to it, right? So take that side hustle. For me, I was commuting to the city 5 hours round trip every day. I had a lot of time sitting on a train to do nothing. So I built websites, and that's how I started to build a client base. Well, the clients I'm attracting when I'm working from 5 p.m. to midnight and then weekends are the same people that are working in side hustles. When I quit my job, I was making on paper significantly less. I took 2 weeks to kind of decompress and I went at it. And then all of a sudden I was getting business. Well, why is that? Because the people I'm targeting now are working from 9 to 5. This is their sole focus. And so the quality of client changed for me. And
Yes.
so I sat there and said to myself, like, what happened if I started this 6 months ago? Of course, you never want to look back, right? Best time to start was in the past. Second best time to start is today. Chris Van Vliet, I'll attribute that one to you. But that was hard. That was really hard. I know everybody that's an entrepreneur goes through that. Later on, from that 2012 to current period, failure is an everyday thing. I've been pretty fortunate through my educational career that I never had to pick up a book. If a teacher taught me something, it's like muscle memory for me. I just see it and I can understand it.
Okay.
I would never do homework. I thought it was stupid. I would go into classes. I mean, there was classes that I'd put my head down on the desk and nap. Teacher would ask me the question. I'd rattle off the answers. Like, okay, you can go back to sleep. I was really good in school. So I was not used to failure at all. And like you said before, sometimes that's a problem. And it was after my father's instances. But then when I went into business, it was the same thing. Nobody ever told me no. Nobody ever told me they didn't like it. And if they didn't, they'd sugarcoat it for me. And that's when I started to try to figure out and pull that out of people. I will never forget the day that I got punched in the gut on a business call.
Oof.
It was, I went into this meeting thinking that this was a layup deal because I got recommended from a company I've been working with for quite a while. I came highly praised. So this is a slam dunk. They had talked to me about it. And I thought that what we're going into is to talk about the vision for their site. And I went in there and there was 3 of them on the call, and he set the counter of it for 2 hours. I'm like, that must have been a mistake. We go in there and he's like, all right, go ahead. Go ahead. She's like, yeah, your presentation. I'm like, presentation? It's like, yeah, like you're going to give a presentation on what you're going to do for our organization. I'm like, oh, I just thought we were going to talk about the website live. And then like, we'll figure out what you want and maybe what we can do. He's like, no, you're going to give a presentation. So do you not have something prepared? I'm like, okay, well, I could just do this live. No problem. And I just went through it. And, there's only so much you can do about looking at somebody's website and critiquing it. And then he just stops me. He's like, we know our website sucks. He's like, tell us how you're going to make it better. So then I go into like my spiel. I'm not a salesperson, right?
Okay.
I can't BS you. I'm going to tell you like it is. So that's how I want you to tell it back to me. So I give him what I think. I give him like, what I think we can do, how I think we could do it, the timeline. And then he just stops me. He's like, listen, man. And he's like, I got to be honest with you right now. And I'm only going to be honest with you because you come highly recommended to us. He's like, you are bombing this. At this point, I am torrentially sweating. Sweating is dripping off my face.
Whoa.
Like,
Okay.
you are doing terrible. So I'm going to give you another opportunity here to collect yourself and go at it. Otherwise, we'll end this. So I was like, all right. So I take a minute, I take a drink of water, and I try to just like on the spot, just think up something to say to get this. We end up wrapping the whole thing up probably in 30 minutes. They had 2 hours reserved for this. I don't know what they were expecting. He asked me at the end if the requirements weren't clear. Of course, I'm not going to say no. I'm like, oh, maybe there was a misunderstanding. I went back and looked at them later. It's not what I anticipated coming into that. Within an hour, they emailed me and said they went in another direction. Totally understood it. And when I was done with that, on the call, I've never been so embarrassed in my life. He asked me, what's your core competency? I had no idea what to say. I'm like, you're asking me things like, I can't, my brain is now not functioning because I'm so nervous. And I just started laughing when I was done. I'm like, that was like, wow, like that was a major failure. I obviously lost that gig. I've never been so embarrassed in a business meeting, but I walked away from that realizing, all right, well, like I've got to structure my process now. And I've got to be able to go into these calls when something like this happens and say like, this is what we can do for you. This is what we do really well. This is how we can optimize your system. And it taught me to have these, not just for those business meetings, but to actually identify my own business. Like, what is my core competency? What do we do well for businesses? And so when you asked me at the beginning, well, what do you do for businesses? Well, that's it. It's like we go into businesses and we leverage technology to improve your operational efficiency. That's our core competency, implementing technology. I didn't know what to say on that call. It was mind-boggling, but I think I came out a better person for it. Not a better salesperson,